Hi, Elaine. Welcome.
Hi, hi, hi.
I'm so excited to be able to have this conversation with you and share with the community a little bit more about your creative expression. Let's ask you first, what led you to creative expression?
Yeah, and seeing it as part of healthcare because my background is in nursing originally. I left nursing about 4 or 5 years after I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia because I didn't have the capacity to do the job anymore. But creativity has always been an interest of mine. When I look back, it's always been an interest of mine. And I've read many books about it. I've followed various artists and whatever. And since my 20s, I've always had, two or three friends in my life that were actively creating. They either were potters or musicians or writers or painters, but I never saw myself as particularly creative. And that's been part of my journey through taking care of myself with fibromyalgia. And it's not something I ever intended to do, but it just kind of evolved through this journey with fibromyalgia. And I'll add one more aspect to that too that really drew me into creativity. After I left nursing, I didn't have a backup income. I was single and I was just, at a quandary what I was going to do next. I did have an opportunity to help an elderly couple a couple mornings a week, but I thought, what else am I going to do to bring in some income? And I love children. I really love children. I didn't have children of my own, love children. So I thought, well, I'm a nurse, if I run an ad that, to do private childcare, I'll probably get some takers. And I did. I got a big response. And I chose this family that the two little boys, one was 6 months old when I started, and the other had just had his third birthday. I was with that family for years and years with the boys when they went through school. And then, it ran into helping the mother with household tasks. And she had her own business that she had an office in the basement. So I do office tasks for her too. So I stayed in connection with that family. And I would go 3 full days a week, and they were staggered. So they weren't back to back. And those little boys, I mean, I've told them this repeatedly, and I think the older one finally gets it because they're in their early 30s now. They were a big part of my healing because I got to experience on a regular basis because I was really invested in them, and they were so loving and so sweet. And play is what kids do. That's how they learn and explore. And so I got to view life because I was headed into depression. By the time I left nursing, I could see I was having signs I was heading into depression because my life was getting smaller and smaller. I was changing jobs, doing part-time jobs in nursing, trying to still hang on to that nursing role, and it just wasn't possible anymore. When I started working with these children and seeing them on a regular basis, and they were such sweethearts, that I started to see life through their eyes, and they opened me up to seeing wonder again in life. And our play projects, and their mom wanted them out for a walk every day, so that kept me walking. Yeah, a lot of this of really reconnecting with the wonder and the mystery in life and seeing life through this creative lens was through those little boys.
Yes, absolutely. And what better way to be able to really enhance that creative expression through play, like you said, and children really do bring that play to the forefront and, make life just a little bit easier. So how has that creative expression help you manage and cope, such a difficult condition such as fibro?
Yeah, and it's evolved very slowly because I will speak to some of this, why my creativity was so blocked. I'll speak to some of this when we share some images in a bit, and I share one of the writings associated with one of the images about my background and why I was so blocked in my creative expression. But it really helped expand my mindset. And because when you're in that creative place and in creative play, then you're using another part of your brain. You can't be in that really fearful place and be in a creative place at the same time. So it just expanded my life. It started to expand my life because my life had become very small. And it's just happened incrementally. I've always had this interest in photography since I was 12 years old and was given my first little box camera at that time. The ways in which I've expanded that and then incorporated writing with that, it all started with seeing the world through my camera. That's about all I can say right now. I think more will come out as we share the images. It expanded my mindset to start to see new possibilities in life. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's in the fact of just expressing more of all of who I was. I wasn't just about fibromyalgia. There was much more in my being that wanted to be expressed. And it reconnected me with play and also reconnected me with finding meaning in different ways in my life.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's very beautiful. And I love how you put the positive on there and bring that creative expression to the forefront. So you do have some images to share with us. So and that way you can, be able to walk us through this creative expression. I'm going to go ahead.
Just give us some examples so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit. And this has evolved. I've done various things. What I strongly believe in, and one of my forefront and how I express myself creatively is I really believe in the power of words and images. They both have incredible power. And that's why images are used so much in advertising, and because both of them evoke emotions. When I'm in my creative play mode and when I'm encouraging others with that, is pay attention to words and images that give you, a certain sense in your heart, something that inspires you or opens you up to seeing in a new way, or makes you see wonder in life again, or just lights you up. Then you're tapping into life-giving energy. And that's how I see creativity. It's life-giving energy. You're tapping into the life that we're all part of, that bigger picture.
Elaine, we are kindred spirits. I am a visual person. I cannot really understand something until I see it visually, and images and everything visual just really draws me in, and it draws on my emotions. So I am connecting with everything that you're saying right now. And I am very excited about you sharing this with our community and being able to see that in action.
I love it. Kindred spirits. I'm looking for more of them.
Yes, we are here.
So we're going to go ahead and look at some images now. Okay, this is, I just picked out several. I've just had a deepening connection with nature. It's been there throughout my life, but at different points, I just really didn't pay attention to it. But really a deepening connection with nature since the beginning of the pandemic, let's say. And I took some classes then around the medicine wheel in different cultures and just really honoring nature and understanding. I wanted to strengthen my own relationship and understanding that I'm part of nature, that my body's part of nature. So this is what's come out of it in the last couple of years. This is an image I took in 2022. It's called Stripped Bare, and it's these wonderful old oak trees, and they're on the grounds of an abbey where I was living, and I lived near there. I just moved back into the city this year, but for 12 years I was living out in that area and visited that abbey periodically, and there was such a sense of stillness and peace there. So this is what came forth from this picture. And see, I take these images, I take lots of photographs, and then when I look through them later, there's certain ones that call to me, and there's some kind of conversation. I'm calling them at this point, my working title for this collection is Nature Conversations or Nature Visits. And this is what came out of this image. Here we are in our nakedness. I see your vulnerability. I sense mine as well. I see your weathered outer shell. I sense mine as well. I see signs of your inner endurance. I sense mine as well. I see the markings of your capacity to tame challenges encountered along this life journey. I see mine as well. I see the grace of your presence within community, because there's all these trees. Oh my goodness. My heart is full of gratitude for your steadfast companionship. Together, we witness moments of both mystery and discovery as part of life's endless unfolding. I draw upon your strength. I am discovering that the life journey may include both, quote, this and that, end quote, together. In other words, it can be both daunting and a blessing simultaneously. I feel like nature is just teaching me so much, my contact with nature these days. This photo was taken last fall a year ago, and it's in a rhododendron garden. I moved back into the city, and I'm near a rhododendron garden that I purchased a annual pass, and then I can go for free whenever I want. And it just feeds me a lot. Well, this one, Reflections on a Fall Day. The energy of this fall season prompts my mind and body to slow my daily pace. The outer world busyness of attending to my projects of spring and summer are moving into memory. More often, it is nostalgic reminders of past fall seasons that come to visit me now. I often, this as an aside, I often go through this little melancholy phase as we start to switch, as I start to see the angle of the light change in the sky and whatever, and the leaves start to change colors, I always get this little state of melancholy for a while because I don't want to leave summer. And then once I move into that new rhythm, then I just really appreciate it. Back to what I wrote. My physical senses are activated by the scent and sound of fallen leaves crunching under my feet, the rich palette of autumn's colors, the feel of cooler temperatures on my skin, the decreasing hours of daylight, and the changing angle of the sun. There is a sense of settling into a slower rhythm during the season that I welcome. It is a rhythmic change felt within my body that helps me recognize my connection with all of the natural world around me. All I need to do now is to allow. I find this can be challenging for us humans. This photo was taken in June this year. There's a canyon that's about 125 miles from me here in Portland. That's kind of remote. I've been there 3 times. Friend met me there this year. I'm not sure whether we'll be going again or not. I am 78 years old. I had my 78th birthday in August. So we're questioning whether it's the wisest thing to be in this area for, several days at a time. There's no phone service there, but it's so gorgeous. And when I first went there in the fall of 2019, it's in Oregon. I'd gone over to the eastern side of Oregon and was on our way back. My friend and I stopped there for a night, and they have 4 cabins they rent out there. And then there's a small campground. And she had wanted to go there for a couple of years prior to that, but it's rattlesnake country, I said to her. So anyway, I agreed to do it for one night on the way back on this trip, and I fell in love with it there. I felt like I was home. That's all I can say. It was strange because it's landscape that's totally unknown to me in this life. I grew up in New England. Now I live in the, northwest corner of Oregon where it's green and rainy. And here it's sagebrush, it's dry. You're in this canyon that the John Day River runs through, this big river. And how I connected with it, what it gave to me was this sense of being held on all. You're just surrounded on all sides by these high canyon walls. They just surround you. And I had the sensation the first morning after I arrived there, and I was up early in the morning, sitting on the porch of the cabin, looking around as the sun was coming up, and I felt like I was being held. And also I had a sensation like I was in the womb. It felt so safe there to me. So I love returning there. But this particular picture was taken this year when I was there, and the sky was big and blue and beautiful this year when I was there. And this is what came through to me. I stand here between earth and sky and gently lean into a deep inner knowing. I am an inseparable part of this vast and wondrous web of life, and I never need doubt that I belong. So it gives me a sense of safety there and a deep sense of belonging that I'm trying to nurture. This one will give you a little bit of background of some of my history and what I consider some, wounding to my spirit when I was a child growing up. Not from ill-intentioned people, but people who had their own wounds. And so, some of that generational trauma that can be passed down in some of the messaging that goes on in families sometimes. I call this one Sensitivity and Inner Strength. And I was pet sitting for a family, and they had these beautiful pink camellias blooming. And I brought one in and put it on the windowsill. And I just loved seeing the fragility and what felt like vulnerability in this blossom. And this is what came through. Sensitivity and inner strength. As a child, I was often told I was too sensitive and also to be more sensible about my aspirations in life. As an adult, I came to realize I had simply been taught to view the outside world as my authority. I have found that this is not terribly uncommon. Fortunately, from an early age, I had a sense within myself that there's more than this, and I know there's another way. I can remember having that realization when I was about age 12. And I used to say to myself, I grew up in Vermont, and I used to say to myself when I was kind of at odds with my family, when I grow up, I know there's more, and I'm going to Boston, which seemed like the whole world, to me. I never did go and live in Boston, but anyhow, back to what I wrote. I am so grateful for this strong inner prompting to believe in life possibilities and to pursue my own form of expression. And that's what I'm talking about, creative expression here. My inner guidance system has felt battered many times in the outside world, and yet it perseveres and sustains me whenever I listen to it. I especially lean into it during big life challenges. I honor it more and more as the years advance. It always guides me toward a deepening trust in life and in myself. I wish the same for others I meet along the way. So that little image there just it kind of gives a little condensed version of what I feel I experienced as emotional wounding or wounding to my spirit when I was young growing up. And I received messages inside and outside of the family because I was a very sensitive child. I'm still a very sensitive being, as I think many of us are. And so anyway, that just kind of encapsulates it for you. So I feel like a big part of my journey with fibromyalgia has been the healing of that wound and stepping into my sovereignty that it's an ongoing process of stepping back from allowing the outside world, to be what is my authority and realizing that I have, power within myself as just being a part of the natural world and part of this whole, creative process of life, that I have my own seat of power within myself. And the journey is learning to trust that more and more and to return to the messages that has for me more and more on a regular basis. The next one is called Dancing Tree, and this was taken in the fall a couple of years ago, 2022, and I love it. I was at that same grounds where the Abbey is, that where I took the pictures of those bare trees at the center. And this tree, this particular day, it just looked like it was moving, and it just looked like it was in dance. So I called it the Dancing Tree. You bring an easy smile to my face, dear tree that dances. You bring a lightness to my heart on this breezy October day. You show me such simple pleasure in your animated aliveness. Thank you for this reminder. As I now slowly walk by, I sense your invitation to join you in a carefree dance today. You ask, why not? And I reply, why not indeed? And that's something that keeps coming up for me, as I loved to dance when I was younger, and I have not been actively dancing on a regular basis for, a number of years. Sometimes I'll get up and just move around to a single tune, but that's something I'm giving more thought to this year and into next year, about finding a way to express myself more through dance to music, because I love music. This one is called Interior View. And it was a neighborhood. These beautiful flowers were blooming when I was in the neighborhood doing some pet sitting. This was last spring. I am frequently drawn to photograph close-ups of the deep interiors of flowers in full bloom. I am in awe as I glimpse their extraordinary beauty. I feel an intimacy with the mysteries of nature when focusing on the blossom center. Frequently, I sense both potency and vulnerability residing there together. Sometimes the sensitivity felt at the center is in marked contrast to the boldness expressed in the outer petals of the blossom. These experiences connect me with both wonder and mystery. I just sometimes I'm filled with wonder when I look into that deep center of a blossom and just think how this came to be, how it came to life from either a little seed or a bulb or whatever. It just connects me with the wonder and awe in life. I fall in love with this living visual of nature's intelligence every time I'm drawn to this deep interior view. I love nature. I love lots of nature, but trees and flowers are my very, very, very favorites. This one is called Mossy Realms, and I was given a trip to these islands that are they're west of British Columbia, and a friend took me up there probably about 10 or 12 years ago for a week or so. I can't remember how long we were there, but it's quite a ways off the mainland. We were on a ferry all night, but it's just kind of a magical land there. This is what I wrote from this. This is what this scene said to me. Welcome to this mossy realm in the Haida Gwaii Islands. These islands are part of Canada and lie west of the mainland. The bountiful rainfall supports an abundant growth of multiple shades of green, cushiony moss. I find myself on watch for a gnome, a fairy, or Peter Rabbit to suddenly appear. This landscape stokes fantasies of a vast assortment of woodland creatures in residence. I sense an otherworldly presence here. This mossy realm grants human visitors the opportunity to recall an earth-centered time and tempo that prompts my body to sigh with relief. And then this is the last one that I chose today. This is called In the Forest, and this is at a park, one of the parks within the city limits of Portland. And I used to live right near this park where it was a real healing time for me. I lived in this tiny, tiny studio apartment that was attached to a residence. It's what I could afford, but there was a 20-minute path that led down into this park. We were right adjacent to the park. And so I was surrounded by trees. And I think this is during that time period. I was there about 12 years. I think it was during that time period that I really began to deepen my connection with trees and fall in love with trees. And I really, really feel like during that time period, the trees helped me with a lot of healing, just being close to them in the forest. Oh, and so I hadn't been there for a few years, and I went back on a walk with a friend, and they put these little rustic benches, wooden benches at different places throughout the park now. And I love benches. I have lots of photos of benches and places and pretty chairs and whatever, because they always remind me about pausing in life. I take a seat in the forest and feel a sense of safety and belonging. My feet rest on the ground beneath me, and I feel into the sensation of the earth supporting me. I am surrounded by tree sentinels and am soothed by their companionship. I hear numerous birds singing to this morning. Some sing to announce their presence, and some sing out of sheer delight in hearing their own voices. I feel a deep curiosity to know this forest world better. I feel a deep peace here in the forest, believing that each person who resides here, or each being who resides here both belongs and contributes. I bow. And that's all the slides for today.
I loved all of that, Elaine. I connected with so many different things that you said, especially with the vulnerability of stripped bare of the tree and reflections on a fall day. It was very, very moving. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you just have a wonderful way with words. And I think a lot of us have that sensitivity that you spoke of and how to cope with that. So thank you for sharing that.
It's a way of connecting with our hearts. I see that however we express whatever creative image, whatever form that comes out within us, we're sharing our heart. We're responding to whatever our heart is drawn to. And when I was a client doing my trauma release work, that was another, there was many, we don't have time today, but there's many points in this juncture of learning to expand my relationship with my own brand of creative expression, or how I see the world in creative ways. And she had me start bringing in these cards. There's a process that I took a class and then trained to be a facilitator quite a few years ago, right when I retired. And so she said, well, why don't you bring in so I'd bring in one or two cards. And she said later that she could see so many more parts of me through these images that I collaged on these cards than what I was verbalizing around the issues that we're dealing with. And she said that's what helped our work really go along pretty rapidly and smoothly, because I got to see more of who you really are. So that was very reinforcing to me about how that expression of, our creative urges, expression of our hearts is a way of connecting with our wholeness, expanding our experience, even when we're going through challenging times.
Yes, absolutely. So that leads me to the next question I was going to ask you is, how can people find your work and get more involved?
Well, I sent you some links to my website. My website is Navigating Life with Fibromyalgia, and then to my Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/Navigating Life with Fibromyalgia. Will you be putting the links somewhere with the video, do you know?
Yes, we will.
Oh, okay.
We'll make sure that everyone has access to that.
So those links, yeah. And then there's what other link and also there's a link, I'd love to hear from people if they have any questions or just hear your experience with creativity. There's a link also to the contact page on my website so that you can directly email me. And don't hesitate if there's questions you have or things that you want to share with me about your own creative expression. I think that was all. Oh, yes. And then the other thing I want to tell people about is I did write an ebook I published back in 2017 through Amazon, and I can periodically set up free days for free downloading. So I've set that up with Amazon that begins at midnight on December 1st and ends at midnight on December 5th. And, if I had the energy, I would update the ebook, because it could be updated because I'm a different place in my journey now than I was, in 2017, but I don't have the energy to do that. But there's a section in there, and part of it, there's a section where I talk a lot about creative expression and all that too. So that might be helpful to people, another way of learning more about me. But I'd be really happy to hear from people. And I have plans to, I've done groups for a long time, support groups around, the physical, emotional aspects of supporting with fibromyalgia. And I'm playing with ideas about how to put that in a format where we come together and we're just focusing on creative play for short periods of time. And maybe not doing the play while we're in session, but coming and seeing the sharing of all the different forms of creativity that come through people, and just reinforcing each other that we incorporate that. We make some time for that part of our lives. So that's I'm working on that. And I'm also working on, I thought I would have it launched this fall, but I ran out of energy, launching a YouTube channel where I hope to interview other people, bring other people on, talking about their forms of creative expression. And again, just reinforcement of that, because it's not something that's really, I don't feel it's, uniformly encouraged in our culture. And it's a very powerful resource. It's a very powerful resource for helping us feel better.
Well, I look forward to you doing any and all of that. I think you have.
I just need a helper.
Here I am. You have such a kind spirit, and you're very warm and inviting. Immediately when I first talked to you on the phone, I just felt very connected, and there was no judgment, and I felt like you and I were friends. And I think you bring that to the table, and along with your creative expression, you really make us feel comfortable and at home, like we have been friends. And I think that goes a long way when dealing with a condition as fibromyalgia.
Oh, thank you. I also want to mention here that part of my support, the ways I've supported people, is around tuning into practices of self-compassion too. I'm a firm believer in routinely speaking to ourselves with kindness and hands to the heart, because that releases serotonin in the brain. They found that connection with our heart center, that physical connection. So anyway, I'll stop because I can go on and on because I am passionate about this.
Yes. Well, thank you for that reminder, because we do need that. So before closing, was there anything you would like to tell someone struggling with fibromyalgia or another chronic condition?
There's many things, but, a physician, thankfully, way back when, a physician planted hope for me. He was a physician who diagnosed me, actually. And my journey started with an auto accident. I had wonderful health before that. It started with a head-on collision, auto accident with serious injuries. And a year and a half later, when I wasn't progressing beyond a certain point and had, incapacitating headaches and pain throughout my body and fatigue and sleep disturbance, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. That was in 1989. It's miraculous that I encountered a physician who was able to diagnose it then. And he basically referred me to a warm water aerobics and gave me a prescription to help with the sleep disturbance. And then said, but that was it. And then and sent me to a trauma counselor for 4 sessions. Mainly, I went there and cried. I just did a lot of grieving there, but because my life had just changed dramatically so quickly. But he did say, this condition can improve over time. I hung on to that. He did not tell me how. I had to discover my steps along the way. And I think that's true for, a lot of us. Thank heavens for people like Support Fibromyalgia Network and many more resources available out now to support and help people. But, he at least planted that seed, and I see the power of words. He said, this condition can improve with time. So I was on the search. After that, and lots of experimentation to see what would work for me, because we all have our individual paths too. But don't ever give up hope. Don't give up a hope. And forming community like what you're supporting here, forming community around the world. I mean, how fortunate we are. I didn't grow up in the time of computers, but I just feel so happy that I have access, with connections, with support people around the world that are dealing with this similar challenge. I mean, it's fantastic. So connect in, don't isolate, connect in, reach out to the places that feel right to you in your heart. And you can feel better. You definitely can feel better.
Well, I think you were an excellent example of the power of words from the beginning of this interview all the way through your sessions and to the very end. So thank you for sharing all of that with us and giving us hope that we can find something that works for us. And we will be connecting with you. The entire community, I know, we're going to be connecting with you to be able to do some of this creative expression. It was very powerful of what you did. So thank you again for sharing your journey and all of this with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Brandy.